Are food dyes really bad for you? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before we get started, if you are new to my channel and you want healthy eating info and nutrition stuff and healthy recipes and all that kind of goodness, then make sure that you click that subscribe button because that's exactly what we talk about here on this channel. Here recently, someone requested in the comments for me to make this video, and more specifically, they wanted to know if I could talk about what food dyes are, if they're okay to eat sometimes, whether or not I personally eat them, and other things like that. So that is the inspiration for this video. And the first thing we're going to get to is what exactly are food dyes. So food dyes are simply things that are used to add colors to food, and they can be used to enhance the natural color of a food or maybe replace some color that might be lost in the processing process. And they can also be added to add like special or fun colors to food that maybe naturally wouldn't be there. Food dyes also communicate some different things to us about our food. They can help communicate flavor. So for example, you might associate the color purple with a grape flavor. That's one example of that. You might also get a signal from food as far as what kind of feeling you should have about it, your emotion or your initial reaction, or what kind of occasion it's for. So maybe really bright colors communicate that the food is for something that's fun or exciting, or maybe colors that aren't the natural color for that food. So think about when they had like the green and purple ketchup and things like that. That might communicate that it's supposed to be weird or quirky or gross or something like that. So we actually get a lot of information about our food based on what color it is. Now, food dyes can be natural or synthetic. Natural food colorings can be made from things like fruit and vegetable juices. You can also dehydrate fruit and vegetables and grind them into like a little powder, or just having the pureed form of the fruit or vegetable. All those things can be used. And I actually have a good example of that in one of my videos where I made a naturally pink frosting for Valentine's Day, and I showed a few different ways to get different shades of pink. You can also use things like different extracts, spices, and a bunch of other naturally occurring ingredients. Synthetic food dyes are made in a laboratory setting, so they're not naturally occurring, and these are things like when you read on a package blue #1 or red #40. Those are all synthetic food colorings. Now, synthetic food dyes do have a few advantages. One is that they are going to be more reliable and consistent because you are creating it and controlling it, as opposed to all the variations that we can find when we use natural food colorings. Synthetic food dyes can also be cheaper to make, and as I'm sure you know, you can get much more intense colors a lot of times with synthetic food colorings. Some of those more natural colors, as well as just the really deep and dark or super bright colors that maybe you couldn't get when you use natural ingredients. Now, there is some concern around food dyes as far as people having negative reactions to them. So maybe when they eat food dyes, they have some sort of symptom that doesn't make them feel good, hyperactivity in kids, things like that. Now, we don't have any really solid evidence that like, yes, food dyes cause XYZ, but we do know that, you know, people can be sensitive to these sort of ingredients in food. With all that said, just because synthetic food dyes are synthetic, they're not natural, and just because some people have sensitivities to them doesn't mean that they're universally bad for everyone. I mean, if you think of something like peanuts, lots of people have really severe peanut allergies, but that doesn't mean that no one should ever eat peanuts. It just means that those specific people who have a reaction shouldn't eat peanuts, and it's the same thing with food dyes. With that in mind, I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to try to reduce the amount of food dyes that you're taking in either, especially if you think that you or maybe your child has a sensitivity to them, because food dyes aren't offering us anything as far as nutrition goes. They're just there for color. So if you remove them, it's not like taking out a food group that maybe could put you at risk of, you know, being deficient in certain vitamins or minerals, things like that. You know, it's just the coloring. So there's really not any risk to taking them out, and there could possibly be some benefits to removing them. And we also have to remember that we're probably gonna find synthetic food dyes in highly processed foods. And we know that it's not very healthy to eat a diet that's based on those highly processed foods. So if you're eating a balanced diet that's based on whole, real foods, then you're gonna be eating overall healthier, and you're probably not gonna be eating a bunch of synthetic food dyes anyways. Personally, I don't know that I have a sensitivity to any of these synthetic food dyes, but I generally don't use them in my cooking. I don't buy a lot of foods that have synthetic food dyes in them. I don't bring that stuff into my house. So in my home, it's something that I really don't have a around, but you know, it's not that I never eat them. If I go to a birthday party for a family member and they have a birthday cake and there's some coloring in the frosting, I don't like totally deny it or opt out of the family get together because there's going to be food dye present. So it's something that I do consume on occasion, but it's really limited and it's just not something that's part of my normal everyday diet. Now, as far as you're concerned, you've got to figure out what is right for you and what's right for your kids, because everyone is a little different. If you have a food sensitivity to these synthetic dyes, or your kid does, then obviously it's going to be more important for you to limit them than someone who doesn't have any sort of sensitivity. The other thing you have to think about is frequency, because as I mentioned before, I don't think special occasions are something you need to stress about because they're such a small part of your overall eating pattern, but sometimes special occasions can start to happen all the time, and then they're not so special. They're a big part of your life. And a good example of this is, you know, if you have a coworker that has candy on their desk and you're going past, you know, several times a day and getting a handful every time you go past. Well, that's becoming more and more of a constant, you know, significant part of your overall diet. So maybe that's something to look at. Another thing is like when kids are in school, a lot of times they have birthday parties in the classroom all the time, or there seems to always be some occasion for foods that have synthetic food dyes in them, whether it's a holiday or they reach some sort of goal, or they made something that's worthy of reward. A lot of time we use food in those kinds of instances, and a lot of times it's the highly processed stuff. So just being honest and aware of when special occasions start to become more of the norm and kind of managing that. Now, on the flip side of this, we don't want to restrict too much or put up too much of a boundary for ourselves or for our kids, because it can cause us to have an unhealthy relationship with food. Now, I do have a video where I talk about this a whole, you know, dedicated video to this one idea, and it's based around the concept of cheat days and good foods and bad foods and things like that, and I think it applies perfectly to this situation too, so I'll link that for you. Make sure you check that video out because I think you'll find it really helpful. But the overall idea is that, you know, when we set up good foods and bad foods and restrict things a lot, it really can cause us to have this unhealthy relationship with food and twisted ideas about food, and that is a whole other issue that we don't want to have to deal with ourselves, and we certainly don't want our kids to have to deal with that. So it's something to think about and be aware of. So those are my thoughts on food dyes. I hope you liked this video and you found it helpful, and let me know in the comments, what do you think about this issue, the whole food dye thing, and do you have any more questions about this, because this certainly is a topic that we could probably go into a lot deeper. So let me know about that, and if you are new to my channel and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and healthy recipes, make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. And if you're loving the free info here, but you're finding that you need something more personalized, don't forget that I do offer one-on-one nutrition sessions. So if you're interested in that, just let me know and we can get that set up for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.